Shocking bombshell. Lewis Hamilton storms back to Mercedes after Ferrari violates a key contract clause. The F1 world is in utter disbelief. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. The Formula One world is still struggling to absorb the shock. Lewis Hamilton, the sport's most iconic driver of the modern era, is making a dramatic return to Mercedes for 2026, walking away from Ferrari in a move that has exposed fault lines deep within the Scuderia's foundation. It's more than a contract switch, it's a symbolic implosion of a fantasy that many believed too beautiful to fail. But behind the PR spectacle, behind the sea of red flags and roaring tifosi, behind the glossy photo shoots and diplomatic smiles, there was always a fracture forming, subtle at first, then undeniable, then terminal. From the outside, Hamilton's arrival at Ferrari was billed as historic. The man with 7 world titles would finally don the legendary red suit, chasing his 8th with the most storied team in Formula One history. Inside, however, the story was far darker, far more human. The romanticism of Ferrari clashed head-on with the unyielding professionalism that Hamilton demanded. Expectations collided with culture. Hope clashed with reality. And in the middle of it all stood a driver who had been promised the keys to the kingdom, only to find himself locked out of the engine room. What has emerged since the news broke is a picture of quiet but relentless disintegration. Ferrari, it turns out, never fully integrated Hamilton into the team's DNA. The structure was resistant. The hierarchy was rigid. Communication, particularly between Maranello's top brass and Hamilton's inner circle, was formal to a fault. Even in private, team leaders addressed him with a sense of distance, more ambassador than ally, more figurehead than partner. There were meetings where Hamilton's suggestions were heard and nodded at, but not acted upon. They went into folders, not onto cars. Sources now say that Hamilton became increasingly isolated within the team. While publicly he played the role expected of him, gracious, diplomatic, motivated, those close to him noticed a change. His usual energy during track walks was subdued. He stopped attending certain engineering meetings altogether, delegating more and more to his performance coach and data analysts. The deeper issue wasn't about pace or upgrades, it was about respect. Respect for his instincts. Respect for his experience. Respect for his legacy. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. Perhaps the most painful blow came not from a race result, but from a boardroom decision. A planned mid-season development package, one that Hamilton had personally advocated for after intense simulator work, was shelved without explanation. When he confronted the technical director, he was met with vague responses about long-term alignment and resource prioritization. For Hamilton, it was a clear signal. He was no longer being seen as central to the vision. He was a passenger, not a pilot. Behind the scenes, the relationship between Hamilton's longtime assistant Angela Cullen and Ferrari's sports performance division also deteriorated. Cullen, known for her deep bond with Hamilton and her role in maintaining his mental and physical sharpness, was quietly sidelined by Ferrari's in-house specialists. There was talk of methodological conflict, but the reality was simpler. Ferrari wanted control. Hamilton saw it as erosion, of trust, of autonomy, of identity. The moment everything crystallized was in Suzuka. A high-speed circuit he'd once dominated, Hamilton found himself locked in a brutal midfield battle, while his engineers argued on the radio over tire strategy in real time. The pit wall was indecisive. Hamilton, ever the tactician, asked twice for data that never came. After finishing a dismal P9, he walked away from his car without speaking to anyone. He didn't attend the engineering debrief. Instead, he left the circuit in a car arranged not by Ferrari, but by his personal assistant. It was no longer speculation. The divorce had already begun. The clause that allowed Hamilton to walk away, a performance-based exit trigger embedded within complex legal language, was enacted just 3 days later. Insiders say the clause was intentionally ambiguous to avoid setting off alarm bells, but precise enough to be bulletproof. The threshold had been crossed. The exit was activated. Toto Wolff, for his part, had waited patiently. While Mercedes had publicly committed to nurturing George Russell as the future, Wolff had never truly let go of Hamilton. Their bond, forged through years of triumph and adversity, remained intact. Communication lines were always open, even if unspoken. When Hamilton's team reached out, Mercedes already had a plan in place, a newly upgraded power unit concept, a revised chassis philosophy for 2026, and a leadership structure recentered around driver collaboration. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. This is more than just a return. It's a statement. Hamilton isn't coming back to reminisce. He's coming back with vengeance in his veins and silence in his stride. The man who was told he had nothing left to prove has found something worth proving after all, that greatness doesn't age, and legends don't fade, they evolve. Ferrari, meanwhile, is in chaos. The media narrative is spinning wildly. Internally, blame is being passed like a hot potato. Some point fingers at the team principal. Others say Hamilton's expectations were unrealistic. But the truth is simpler and more painful. Ferrari believed the name was enough. That putting Hamilton in red would magically ignite a new golden era. But names don't win races. Culture does. And Ferrari's culture, for all its heritage, is still trapped in a past that doesn't make room for evolution. Hamilton tried. He gave them time, wisdom, patience, ideas. But in the end, the silence grew louder than the cheers. He didn't shout. He didn't break down. He just walked away, quietly, decisively, and with a plan. 2026 will mark not the end of his career, but the rebirth of a legacy. The storm is coming. And Hamilton is already at the eye of it. The wind was cold that morning in Brackley. Fog clung low to the asphalt, the kind that makes everything feel suspended in time. Inside the Mercedes-AMG Petronas headquarters, the lights were already on, long before sunrise. But this wasn't a routine day. Not anymore. Because somewhere in the building, behind layers of security and silence, Lewis Hamilton was back. No one officially confirmed it. There was no press release. No teaser campaign. No welcome home video. But people noticed the subtle details. The blacked-out Mercedes G-Wagon parked in the restricted executive zone. The sudden spike in security clearances. The brief visit by an unnamed consultant from INEOS. Whispers spread like wildfire. And then, as if orchestrated by fate, Hamilton walked through the double-glass doors of the wind tunnel complex. He was alone. No entourage. No PR rep. Just him, and a purpose that had clearly evolved. What had changed? More than anyone knew. Behind the scenes, Hamilton's return wasn't just contractual, it was structural. Mercedes had offered him something no other team dared: influence. Real, organizational, top-down influence. A direct channel not just to the engineers or strategists, but to the boardroom. The new deal was unlike anything before it. Hamilton would not only be a driver, he would be a stakeholder, a co-developer, a strategic advisor for the electric transition projects within both F1 and road car divisions. And he had conditions. First, he wanted Mike Elliott back. No compromise. Second, he demanded an overhaul of the tire management division, something he felt had been neglected during the Russell-focused transition years. Third, he proposed something radical: an off-site skunkworks program, staffed with a cross-section of Mercedes F1 veterans and emerging tech talent, where car concepts could be prototyped without political interference. Toto Wolff didn't flinch. He agreed. Every term. Because he understood something the others didn't. This wasn't about nostalgia. This was about legacy. Meanwhile, Ferrari scrambled to contain the fallout. Internal documents leaked to select Italian journalists revealed an aggressive counter-campaign had been proposed by Ferrari's marketing wing. They wanted to frame Hamilton's exit as culturally incompatible. But it backfired. Fans accused them of veiled elitism. Rumors began to swirl that Charles Leclerc had threatened to walk if the team continued its smear campaign. And then there was Frédéric Vasseur, visibly aged in a matter of weeks. He stopped making public appearances. His calendar was cleared indefinitely. Unconfirmed reports suggested Ferrari's executive council was weighing a reshuffle, one that could see Vasseur replaced by someone from outside F1 altogether. Possibly a high-ranking executive from Ferrari's road car division, known more for brand management than racing strategy. But that was only part of the ripple effect. Red Bull began holding contingency briefings, with Verstappen behind closed doors. Christian Horner, for all his bravado, couldn't ignore the timing. Hamilton's return coincided with murmurs that Mercedes had discovered something in the simulator, something relating to floor flexibility and wake management that could rewrite the pecking order. Adrian Newey was seen pacing the Red Bull pit wall more often than usual. Engineers close to the aero department mentioned late-night tests, emergency meetings, New computational models. A new ghost had entered the minds of Milton Keynes, and it had 7 world titles. As for Russell, he evolved. This wasn't the insecure junior from 2022. This was a hardened, data-obsessed driver who had tasted both victory and humiliation. But he understood what Hamilton's return meant. And surprisingly, he embraced it. Their simulator sessions became legendary, hour-long debriefs that turned into philosophical debates about driving styles, car balance, and the evolution of tire compounds in the 2026 regulation shift. Off-track, the media circled like sharks. Every event Hamilton attended was dissected. What he wore, who he spoke to, which guests he brought to the paddock. At a recent gala in Monte Carlo, he was seen speaking at length with Elon Musk. That alone was enough to trigger conspiracy theories. Was Hamilton secretly negotiating a Tesla-Mercedes tech alliance? No one knew, but everyone was watching. Then, during a routine Friday FP1 session at Silverstone, something strange happened. A prototype Mercedes car, registered under a testing exemption clause, took to the track with a camouflaged livery. Hamilton was driving. But this wasn't a promotional run. Sensors covered the chassis, a strange-looking floor design ran all the way to the diffuser, and a double beam wing configuration raised immediate suspicion. Cameras caught Hamilton exiting the cockpit after just 16 laps, his expression unreadable. He spoke to no one. But the lap times told the story. He was 1.2 seconds faster than any other car on track. Social media exploded. #BlackRain began trending worldwide. In an interview days later, Hamilton finally broke his silence. Sitting across from a stunned interviewer, he said calmly, "I didn't come back to race. I came back to reset the game." The interviewer stammered, asked what that meant. Hamilton didn't answer. He stood up, removed his mic, and walked away. Since then, things haven't been the same. The paddock knows. The teams know. The fans feel it. Hamilton isn't just another champion making a late return. He's the ghost in their data. The variable they didn't account for. And with every corner, every lap, every decision, he's proving one thing. Legacy doesn't retire. It reloads. Would you like this to continue with the next race or private testing session? He didn't say a word when he landed in Tokyo. Not to the driver waiting at the terminal, not to the Ferrari PR rep nervously refreshing social media for damage control. Charles Leclerc walked through the crowd like a ghost. Flashing cameras caught only the shell of a man who had boarded the plane as Ferrari's golden boy and stepped off it as a question mark. He wasn't angry. He wasn't emotional. He was vacant. As if every calculated decision Ferrari made in the weeks prior had slowly drained the blood from his ambition. A silence that screamed louder than any interview. What stung the most, according to someone in his management team, wasn't just that he had been left in the dark. It was who had known. Hamilton's inner circle. Mercedes engineers. Sponsors. Even certain F1 officials. Everyone, it seemed, except him. The rumor now circulating is that Lewis had been in talks with Ferrari for over 8 months, while publicly downplaying speculation, while smiling alongside Toto Wolff, while posting cryptic Instagram captions about unfinished business. Leclerc, meanwhile, had been negotiating a contract extension, unaware he was being edged out of the throne before the ink dried. Insiders claim the first hint of Hamilton's move came during a marketing shoot in Maranello. A closed-door meeting ran long. Executives from Shell and Ray-Ban shuffled nervously around the building, and when Leclerc asked if he should wait, he was told, "It's a supplier logistics call." It wasn't. Hamilton's representatives were in the building, a few feet away, finalizing what would become the biggest shock deal in the hybrid era. When news broke, Ferrari issued a cold, templated message about honoring the legacy of both drivers. No warmth. No personalization. No thank you to Leclerc for years of loyalty and patience during rebuilds and failed title pushes. To many, it felt like a breakup text typed by a boardroom. He wasn't just stunned, he was humiliated. Meanwhile, the Lewis Hamilton effect hit Formula One like a meteor. Spotify reported a 600% spike in streams of old Sky Sports post-race interviews featuring Hamilton. EA Sports, scrambling to stay relevant, announced they would patch a special legend mode into the upcoming F1 game, allowing players to race with Hamilton in both Mercedes and Ferrari livery. Beats by Dre dropped a teaser featuring Hamilton walking past a line of V12 Ferraris in an abandoned hangar, as a remix of Public Service Announcement by Jay-Z echoed through the scene. One word appeared on screen: return. But the tremors went deeper than PR. The driver market, which had been stable for the first time in years, instantly imploded. Carlos Sainz, left out of the picture entirely, became the most wanted man in the paddock. Audi, Aston Martin, and even Red Bull reportedly reached out within 48 hours. At Red Bull, Helmut Marko, never one to mince words, said in a German interview, "This move doesn't just change Ferrari. It destabilizes the entire ecosystem." Max Verstappen, when asked about it, smiled but said little. His silence spoke volumes. Because even the reigning world champion knows, a motivated Hamilton in red is not just a nostalgic image. It's a potential legacy destroyer. Within Ferrari, the gamble is simple: pair the most marketable man in motorsports with their most iconic brand, and pray that the volcano doesn't erupt from within. But tensions are already rising. Staffers loyal to Leclerc reportedly feel disrespected, with one engineer resigning just days after the announcement. The simulator team, who worked closely with Leclerc for years, was completely restructured to accommodate Hamilton's preferences, down to telemetry alignment and setup philosophy. Even seat fit sessions became political. Hamilton reportedly requested changes to the chassis ergonomics that clashed with Leclerc's long-established comfort zone. It's not just a new teammate. It's a new hierarchy, a new language, a new Ferrari. And Charles? He's keeping quiet. For now. No tweets. No interviews. Just training videos and blank captions. But those close to him say he's not broken, he's plotting. His trainer has doubled his schedule. He's been reviewing hours of onboards from 2019 and 2022, searching for every ounce of lost time. He's focused not just on performance, but on presence. Because he knows the cameras will be watching every glance, every word, every fraction of distance between him and the 7-time world champion in red. And deep down, a fire is building. Not out of jealousy, but survival. He doesn't want revenge. He wants to win before Hamilton does. Want a continuation of this saga, showing the first day they meet at Ferrari HQ or a press conference showdown? There comes a point in every legend's life when the world expects him to fade, gracefully, quietly, respectfully. But Lewis Hamilton has never followed the script others wrote for him. Not in karting. Not in GP2. Not when he entered Formula One as a teenager in 2007 and nearly dethroned a reigning double world champion in his rookie season. And certainly not now, as he stands at the crossroads of legacy and vengeance. This is not a comeback, it's a reckoning. When news broke that Hamilton was leaving Mercedes to join Ferrari in 2025, headlines erupted. Critics questioned his decision. Analysts dissected it. Even fans, loyal for over a decade, were stunned. Why leave the team that he built into a modern-day dynasty? Why take the biggest risk of his career at the age of 40? The answer was never going to be simple. Because Lewis Hamilton doesn't move for comfort, he moves for purpose. And right now, Ferrari isn't just a new challenge. It's a battlefield. A cathedral of history drenched in expectation and failure. For 20 years, they've chased shadows of their own greatness. Alonso couldn't restore it. Vettel came close, but cracked under pressure. Now it's Hamilton's turn. And he's not coming to negotiate. He's coming to resurrect. There's a storm brewing in Maranello. The team, once criticized for political chaos and strategic incompetence, is shifting. Fred Vasseur's leadership has brought a quiet ruthlessness. The engineering department has tripled its simulation data inputs. The wind tunnel metrics are cleaner than ever. And the factory is humming, not with hope, but with determination. Because now, they have the man who knows exactly what it takes to beat Red Bull, not on paper, but on track. Corner by corner. Lap by lap. What makes this version of Hamilton terrifying isn't his speed, it's his scars. He's lost. He's suffered. He's been publicly robbed of glory and privately haunted by what could have been. He doesn't trust narratives anymore. He trusts telemetry. He trusts work ethic. He trusts pain. And pain is the fuel that wins championships when the car isn't perfect and the odds are stacked. Charles Leclerc is still Ferrari's golden boy, but with Hamilton arriving, he must now evolve or be eclipsed. The dynamics in that garage will be electric, volatile, and absolutely magnetic to fans. This isn't a mentorship. It's not a farewell parade. It's a declaration: you either rise with me, or I rise over you. Meanwhile, Red Bull watches from the top, smug in their dominance, but slightly unsettled. Verstappen is a generational talent, but Hamilton is a generational storm. And storms don't respect dynasties. They shatter them. Red Bull's car may be perfect on paper, but Hamilton's mind is no longer constrained by machinery. He knows every vulnerability of that team. He's studied them. Every pit wall decision, every tire offset, every DRS gap. And when he lines up next to Max again, it won't be about revenge. It will be about precision. Cold. Surgical. Fatal. The entire grid shifts when Hamilton enters the room. McLaren, now reborn with Norris and Piastri, dreams of youth and future titles, but the presence of Lewis reminds them, greatness isn't built on potential, it's forged in fire. Aston Martin dreams of building a legacy with Alonso, but the blueprint now feels dated compared to Hamilton's next chapter. Even F1 as an institution begins to quake. Because Hamilton's return at this level of intensity forces the sport to confront its own past mistakes. The controversial decisions, the media bias, the narrative manipulation, Hamilton's resurgence reopens every wound. And the world is watching. Sponsors triple their investments. Grandstand tickets sell out in minutes. Netflix cameras follow him like a shadow. Children mimic his mannerisms in karting paddocks across continents. He's not just racing. He's broadcasting a revolution. A reminder that speed without soul is meaningless, and that every lap he drives is now a message: I am still here. And I will not leave quietly. His daily routine becomes obsessive. Every calorie measured. Every sim session logged. Every track walk analyzed like a general studying terrain. He isn't looking to race clean. He's looking to dominate. To put in laps so merciless, so strategic, that by mid-season, the rest of the grid is questioning their purpose. When the lights go out at the opening race of the season, it won't just be a launch. It'll be a warning shot. Because Hamilton is no longer chasing a championship. He's chasing closure. The kind of closure that only comes from rewriting your own ending, one podium at a time. And if he gets that 8th world title? If he climbs to the top step one final time as the world champion? It won't just be a celebration. It will be a moment that fractures time. A scene that children will replay on loop. A final act that forces even his loudest critics to stand and applaud. Not because they want to, but because greatness, when seen in its purest form, commands silence. And if he doesn't? If he fails? That too will be iconic. Because unlike many who fear failure, Hamilton embraces it. He understands that the story isn't just about winning. It's about daring to fight when you no longer have to. And that is what makes him immortal.